Welcome to How to Play Horus Heresy 3rd Edition. In this video, we are going to explain and discuss both the start and end phases of the player turn. Even the blood-soaked heart of war is caged by the iron strictures of logic, and those that understand the callous rules that bind it will stand triumphant on the field of battle. These words are attributed to the Lord Primarch of the 4th Legion, Perturabo of the Iron Warriors. If you are looking for other videos on how to play the game, then you can find them all on the channel in a dedicated playlist. And if this video helps you, then please give it a like, consider sharing it with a fellow Heresy player, and let me know how you are enjoying the rules of the new edition. You could also consider joining the Hopeless Heresy Legion by subscribing and hitting the bell for more Horus Heresy goodness. To ensure your battles in the Age of Darkness run smoothly, your turn will have both a start and an end phase. These phases allow the use of certain special rules and equipment, the correct timing of sequences, and most importantly, a tally of victory. Understanding these phases is key to the successful playing of the game. The start phase is the first phase of the player turn. It allows the player to correctly time the activation of certain special rules and equipment. Meanwhile, the end phase is the final phase of a player's turn. Similarly, it allows the player to correctly time the activation of certain special rules and equipment, but it's also the point in the game where a player can try to remove harmful tactical statuses from their units and tally their victory points if playing a mission that requires them. Most importantly, both these phases act as bookends to the player's turn. Once the end phase is completed, then the active player's turn is completed. Their opponent would then become the active player, and their turn would begin with their own start phase. The start phase is the first phase of a player's turn and is the most straightforward phase in the game. It contains one subphase, the effects subphase. It comes directly before the movement phase. This phase has one function, the correct timing of special rules and effects. If a special rule includes the phrase "at the start of the player turn" or words to that effect, then it will come into effect now in this phase. If I have a special rule that activates at the start of the player turn, then now is when that effect would activate. If you require any dice rolls, measurements, or characteristic checks to activate the special rule, then now is also when you would complete them. For example, the Nuncio Vox is a special piece of war gear that allows a unit to try and remove a tactical status at the start of the player's turn. It is activated during the start phase of their turn as the active player. If I wanted to use a Nuncio Vox, I would declare to my opponent that I am using it and roll the required characteristic check at this point. If you have a special rule or effect that ends at the start of the player turn, then now is the point where that special rule would end. If you require any dice rolls, measurements, or characteristic checks to activate that special rule, then now is when you would complete it. For example, the Cybertheurgic right Deactivate Limiters is invoked during a player's turn to buff another friendly unit belonging to the Ordo Reductor. Its beneficial effects last until the controlling player's next start phase. So in this phase, the benefits of Deactivate Limiters would be removed. This also comes with Cybertheurgic Feedback, which has a dangerous consequence of using certain rights. This would also happen in this phase. Note that although you may complete all these various rules and effects in any order, for example removing statuses on squads with the Nuncio Vox, essentially everything in this phase happens at the same time. Essentially, any special rule that mentions the start phase will happen now. It is important that you know and understand the timings of your force's special rules to make your turn run smoothly. Once the start phase is completed, the active player would then move on to the movement phase. The end phase is the final part of a player's turn. It comes directly after the assault phase, and once completed would conclude the active player's turn. It has three distinct subphases: the effects subphase, the statuses subphase, and the victory subphase. The effects subphase is almost identical to its cousin in the start phase, and has one function: the correct timing of special effects and special rules. If a special rule contains the phrase "at the end of the player turn" or words to that effect, then it will come into effect now in this subphase. If you have a special rule that activates at the end of the player turn, then now is when that effect would take place. If you require any dice rolls, measurements, or characteristic checks to activate this special rule, then now is also when you would complete them. Similarly, if you have a special rule or effect that ends at the end of the player turn, then now is the point where that special rule would end. If this would also require any dice rolls, measurements or characteristic checks, then now is when you would complete them also. Finally, if the reactive player has any reaction points remaining, then they are discarded at this point and can no longer be used. Reaction points never carry over into other turns. If there are no rules or effects that activate or run out at the end of the turn, then this subphase can be skipped. Next is the statuses subphase. This subphase is where your units will try to remove tactical statuses inflicted upon them, either through characteristic checks or vehicle repair tests. The active player will perform checks on all units that have tactical statuses and attempt to remove them. They would perform checks for each status a unit has. The active player can select these units in any order they like. For the pinned, stunned and suppressed statuses, this would be a cool check. The unit would roll 2d6 and compare the result to the cool stat the majority of the models within the unit have. If they score equal to or under the stat, then the test is passed and the status is immediately removed. If the score is over the stat, then the unit remains statist. Units that contain a model with the command or sergeant subtype can use that model's cool stat instead. For the routed status, this would be a leadership check. The unit would roll 2d6 and compare the result to the leadership stat the majority of the models in the unit have. If they score equal to or under the stat, then the test is passed and the routed status is immediately removed. If the score is over the stat, then the unit remains routed. Units that contain a model with the command or sergeant subtype can use that model's leadership stat instead. Once I have performed all the required checks for one unit, then I would move on to the next applicable unit to perform checks on them. Note that these checks can also occur while locked in combat. I have two units with statuses. One has the suppressed and pinned statuses, while the other is routed and has just fallen back from combat in the same turn. In the statuses subphase, I can try and remove the statuses from the units. For Unit A, I would perform two cool checks, one for the suppressed status and one for the pinned status. The squad has a sergeant with a cool of 7. I will roll 2d6 for each check and try to score 7 or under. I roll a 5 for the suppressed status and a 6 for the pinned status. I can remove both statuses immediately, and my squad is fully effective again. For the routed status, I would instead perform a leadership check. The squad has a centurion who has a leadership of 9. I will roll 2d6 for the check and try to score 9 or under. Note that although I have literally just fallen back from combat, I will still get to attempt to remove my status. Oh dear, I've rolled an 11. The squad remains routed. I would need to follow all the rules for routed units in the next turn. Vehicles will also attempt to remove statuses in this subphase as well, but as they do not have a cool or a leadership stat, they would instead perform a vehicle repair test. To perform this test, you would roll a single d6 aiming to roll a 6. Only one vehicle repair test can be attempted per vehicle. If a 6 is rolled, then the repair test is a pass, and the player can remove a single status of their choice from the vehicle. If it is failed, then the vehicle remains statist. As only one test can be performed per vehicle, you can only ever remove a single status from a vehicle per turn. This is why it is important to have other ways of mitigating statuses on vehicles. Once a vehicle has performed its vehicle repair test, then the player would select the next applicable vehicle to perform another vehicle repair test. This can be in any order of the player's choosing. I have two Predator tanks, and both have statuses. Predator A is pinned, while Predator B is both pinned and stunned. I can attempt to remove statuses from both tanks in the statuses subphase. I will roll a vehicle repair test for each of the tanks. For each vehicle, I will roll a single d6 and aim to score a 6. If I do, the vehicle repair test is passed, and I can remove a status. I roll a 3 for Predator A. The test is failed, and the tank remains pinned. I roll a 6 for Predator B. The test is passed. However, I can only remove a single status with this successful test. I remove the pin status to allow my tank the ability to move once more. It will, however, remain stunned. Although Predator B had 2 statuses, it only gets a single vehicle repair test. Some vehicles have the Auto Repair X special rule. This special rule makes the vehicle repair test more effective. Instead of attempting to score a 6 on 1d6, the vehicle would instead aim for the score highlighted by the X. A Land Raider carrier has the Auto Repair 5+ special rule. This means that instead of looking to score a 6 for a successful vehicle repair test, the player would instead require a 5+ on 1d6. This makes Land Raider carriers more effective at removing statuses than most other vehicles. They would still only get 1 attempt per turn, however. Note that a vehicle repair test is only for removing statuses. It cannot be used to regain hull points lost during the battle. Once all your applicable units have attempted to remove their statuses, then this subphase would be complete. The player would then move on to the victory subphase. This is an important thing to note, as players can easily get this wrong. All your units will attempt to remove their statuses before moving on to the victory subphase. This means these units can potentially become scoring units once more. The final subphase of a player's turn is the victory subphase. This subphase is when a player would score victory points for certain missions. If the mission special rules state that the active player can score victory points in the victory subphase, then now is when they would score those points. The player's score would go up by the appropriate amount scored. Only the active player scores points during this subphase. Note that how the player scores these victory points will be described in the mission's details. Once the active player has tallied their victory points, then their turn ends and their opponent becomes the active player. If this is the final turn of the game and you did not go first, then the game would end at this point. Although the start and end phases are quite brief, they are both incredibly important to the correct functioning of the game. It is important to understand when key rules happen, when statuses can be removed, and of course when victory points can be scored. And that is how to complete both the start and end phases of the player turn. Please call out with any questions or feedback in the comments below. If you see something that doesn't seem quite right, please leave a comment with the appropriate page number of the correct rule in either the rulebook or the PDF so I can keep myself right. And as ever, thank you very much for watching.